Recruiting successfully time over time can be hard, and all of us have made mistakes we regret. So, today we are going to discuss the top 3 mistakes business owners make in recruiting. The official podcast of SocioSquares, where we talk about the proven practices for business success. Hello, business owners. I'm Rav Mendirata from SocioSquares, and landing leads is where my business leads. If this is the first time you're checking out one of these video podcasts, this is the place where I interview business coaches, successful business owners, and other experts, and they share the proven practices for business success. Depending on where you might be watching, don't forget to hit like, follow, and subscribe. If you're watching on YouTube, don't forget to hit the bell icon so that you never miss a video update. Now let's get into it. Today we are going to talk about the top 3 mistakes business owners make in recruiting. To throw some light on the subject, I have an expert in recruiting with me today, Mike Mayer, who has over 30 years of experience in recruiting. Mike, thank you so much for joining us today.
Great to be with you, Gaurav. Thanks for having me.
I know Mayer Madison is new, so why don't you tell us a little bit about your background and how you landed with Mayer Madison?
So, Gaurav, as you mentioned, I started my career in corporate human resources and spent a lot of time in the talent world in terms of development and finding great talent for companies and corporations. Moved over into the recruitment side, specifically as a search executive for a number of years, and quickly figured out that there are quite a few people who really don't know what this whole job search process is about. They're great, bright people. They're just stuck. And so I've really focused this business on helping people get unstuck in the job search process.
That's nice. So from stuck to unstuck. That's awesome. So that brings me to my first question, which I have for you. What do you think are the top 3 mistakes professionals make when they are looking for a job?
So 3 things really on that front, as you'd asked. First, they don't have a process. And as we know, anything, and I've spent a lot of time in manufacturing businesses and technical businesses and service businesses, and all of them have a process. You have a process for how you're going to design a product and produce a product, etc. And people typically don't have a process. They go about it by responding to whatever might come across their radar screen, by answering a call from a former colleague or whatever, but they don't really have a process by which they're going to go from the current situation, unemployed or employed, to a new role. So they really don't have any kind of process. Second is they don't use their computer the right way. They use it really in the wrong way. And what I've preached to anybody who will listen is that 80% of the jobs are filled by people known to the hiring manager, 80%. And so we see all of these jobs out there on the internet that we think are the right job for us and I'm the perfect person, and we apply for them and we get no response. And the rationale behind that is we're not known to the manager. And so therefore, we need to spend our time really getting inside and understanding who the companies are and who the people are through our process to get the role that we want. And then the third thing is that way too often we've gotten ineffective in our communications. People tend to want to use a text or an email as opposed to picking up a phone and having a conversation with somebody. And I find that pattern interrupt where we communicate by a different means than we normally do is really one of the things that's been incredibly effective in terms of people in their job search.
Wow, those were some amazing insights and a staggering statistic, 80%. I didn't realize that, but sitting on the hiring side, now I can relate to it. I mean, we don't get back to almost 90% of the people who apply for the job.
Exactly.
Right? Because they're not a good fit. So that's amazing. So let's talk about the challenges then. So what would you say are the top 3 challenges professionals are facing today in your experience with the professionals you work with?
So here's the interesting piece, and there's kind of 2 sides to this, if you will, Gaurav. I think, and we'll talk a bit about this, I hope, on this discussion, but people don't really think about what role is the right role for them. And what I mean by that is I'm an accountant. I want to find another job. I'm going to go be an accountant. I'm a coder. I'm a developer. I want to find another job. I want to be a coder. I want to be a developer. people don't spend much time really thinking about where they've been successful, what work they enjoy, what work is most meaningful, and identify what the right role is. I have somebody right now incredibly talented in the medical device space and doesn't want to sell medical devices, doesn't want to deal with that part of it, but does want to do other things in the life sciences world. And she's identified a world for herself where she said, these are the attributes of what I like to do and what I want to do within that life sciences world. And it's not in sales, and and it may not even be in medical devices. So that's one key thing. Second is that they don't really know how to network. They're petrified of it. They don't really know what networking is, and it's nothing more than having a discussion about a common set of circumstances. And so they're very nervous about how do you initiate a networking discussion, and how do you what do you talk about? What questions do you ask? Those sorts of things. And then the third thing is always the third thing to have a problem with is, how do you handle those tough questions, right? So what do I say when they ask this question? How do I negotiate a salary that I want? How do I get stock options if that's what I want? How do I get remote work? How do I get work from home? How do I get a hybrid schedule? All the sorts of things that people just don't know, that they really have a tough time on that whole communications front of how it is that they can communicate with a potential employer on those tough questions that are asked.
Wow, these are really some questions which you'll only come across if you're in the weeds. And I'm sure Mayor Madison can help candidates with that. So I'm excited that you shared this, because our audience can hopefully reach out to you. And if they are in the weeds as well, they can find these answers. So thank you so much for sharing this. Now let's just shift gears and talk about the business side. Right.
Yeah.
I mean, last 2 years have been really challenging for most small businesses to recruit. So what would you say are the top 3 things small business owners can do to hire faster and hire better?
So that's like the $1 million question, isn't it, Gaurav? Because if I look at it, the statistic that I'd seen like over the course of time is that businesses at best, are able to find highly qualified, highly successful people that will stay with their organization, maybe 30% of the time. What do I mean by that? 2/3 of the people that we hire either aren't what we expected, don't work out, leave, or we ask them to leave the organization. And I always ask business owners, where else in your company will you tolerate that? Will you tolerate a sales goal of $1 million and coming in at $300,000? Will you tolerate a close rate on your sales of 50% and come in at 15%, right? Will you, and it goes on and on and on, right? But so we seem to think in business that, people and people costs aren't that significant. And in fact, many organizations, it's the number one expense, right? Because we're leased, maybe buildings are a little bit more, but basically payroll and buildings are our two biggest expenses. And yet we spend very little time on that. So what I always say is business owners need to get really, really good at assessing talent. And it comes back to some of the things I've spoken about earlier, identifying what the job is and talking about what the profile for a successful person in that job is really important, and then being able to assess consistently against that. And what I hear often is, well, one of my clients suggested I hire this person. I could tell you every single source under the sun. My neighbor's best friend's brother's uncle's aunt, suggest I hire this person. They're a wonderful person, and I always say, everybody should be a wonderful person, but you got to really figure out, can they actually do the job that you want to go do? And in some cases, I've been asked by companies to come in and help them, assess the talent and be able to ask those kind of questions so that they can do it, because it takes a lot of time, and I've spent a lot of time in my career doing it. The second is you really need to recruit better candidates. Come back to my discussion, and you articulated confirmation of it. It's throwing a job on the board and what's called posting and praying. we post a job and we pray the right person applies for it. And even if you work through the numbers on that and you say, hey, that may or may not happen, the probability of that is really, really, really low. So I will say, go use your networks as a business owner to say to your colleagues in your network, I'm looking for somebody with these attributes that I really would like to try to recruit into my organization. And then the third, which is lethal, is speed. We need to infuse speed into the recruitment process. If I've mapped this out twice, I've mapped it out 10,000 times. The time from start to finish on a recruitment of a person is about 5 business days. It's about 5 business days. If you can work it ideally, right? If you say, hey, we know exactly who it is, we're going to spend our time really aggressively looking and sourcing candidates. We're going to interview them quickly. We're going to put an offer together quickly, and we're going to get them to accept quickly. Maybe 5 is an exaggeration. I saw your reaction, Gaurav, but we can do it very quickly. And if we look at ourselves introspectively, what happens? Well, we've got this big sales pitch we have to put together, so we can't respond to that candidate until a week from now. And then two or three of the people that we want to have interview them aren't available for 2 more weeks, and there it goes. The process just moves along. And our candidates are interviewing. Typically, when they decide to go look at another opportunity, they're looking at 2 to 5 other places, and whoever's moving quickly might be the one that gets your services. So again, get really, really good, or find a pro that can help you assess that talent, get really strong on recruiting as opposed to posting and praying, and inject a huge element of speed into your evaluation and recruitment process, and you should be well on your way towards success.
Those are some eye-opening insights again. I mean, on an average, it takes us, with our internal processes, at least 6 to 10 weeks to hire somebody, but 5 business days. That's pretty awesome. Thank you so much, Mike. This was a great session. I have just one last question for you, and I got to ask this just because we are in digital marketing. So what is that one digital marketing strategy which has worked for your business?
So I have really embarked on a trail of doing webinars. And I haven't done as many as I really should. And what I will be doing is using my networks to communicate these webinars, and then following up with a digital campaign of newsletters and information to those who attend, as well as those who are unable to attend, as a means of marketing the business.
That's pretty cool. So you're using something we call as a tripwire funnel, in a way that webinar is a no cost or low cost for people who attend, and then you are essentially educating them on the services they can avail from you. So that's pretty cool. I'm so glad that it is working for you.
Very effective.
Thank you again, Mike. Thank you so much for doing the session, and I'm sure our audience can take a lot of things from this. Thank you.
Great to be with you. Good luck to you.